Okay, aloha and welcome to ICoME 2022. It's so good to see so many familiar faces, familiar names, and we really had hoped to see you in Honolulu this year, but unfortunately, as you know, we are still restricted by the um, COVID virus. So we are doing the next best thing and meeting with you virtually. Some of you have come from Gathertown. Our attempt to make it a little bit more interactive kind of experience for you. And we've even created a beach for you to go to at the end of today's session. Not the same as Waikiki Beach, but hopefully a place where you can gather and get to know each other. Hi, my name is Curtis Ho from TCC Hawaii and the Learning Design and Technology Department from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I'd like to introduce the co-organizers of this conference, Bert Kimura and Kitty Hino. I'm sure their names are very familiar to you by now because many emails you have received from them. So Bert, if you could turn on your camera and mic and just say hello.
Aloha, everyone. This is Bert Kimura, and I'm very happy to see everyone in this opening session. So back to you, Curtis.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know Kitty is running around. Bert was responsible for getting all of the programs together and just really doing a good job at the scheduling. Kitty was responsible for the website and Gathertown, and she's really busy doing a lot of things in addition to working and teaching full time. So Kitty, if you're around, you're welcome to grab the mic and say hello.
Aloha, everyone. I am Kitty. And very nice to see so many of you here today. I hope you're having fun in Gathertown. And again, if you have any questions about Gathertown or Zoom, feel free to drop by our help desk and let us know, or email us at ltech@hawaii.edu. And of course, you can, if you just want to chat to us, feel free to come and chat to us as well. Nice seeing you folks. Aloha.
Hey, Kitty, before you go, maybe mention the students that have helped you with the website and Gathertown.
Yes, certainly. So I was very lucky to have two amazing student workers. One of them is my new GA, Aaron Machida, and he just turned on his camera. If you would like to say hi to everybody, please do.
Hi, I'm Aaron Machida. I'm the new graduate assistant for the Learning Design and Technology Department. So nice to meet everybody. Yeah, so I've been helping Kitty, even answering the emails and making sure that everything also goes smoothly with this. So thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Angeline is not here with us today. She will be joining us in Gathertown tomorrow. So again, if you is in Gathertown, feel free to drop by and say hi to us. Mahalo.
And we can't forget Johnny. Johnny, who's not a student anymore.
Johnny is not a student with us at LTech anymore. He's officially entered the adult world working full-time, also at UH Manoa, and he did help us a lot with this conference as well. Thank you, Johnny. I know you're not joining us right now, but you will later on today. Mahalo,
Okay,
Curtis.
he can watch the recording. Thank you. And we'd also like to thank the organizations for their support in the planning of this conference in the alphabetical order. China Association for Educational Technology, Japan Association for Educational Media Studies, and Korean Association for Educational Information and Media. And we'd also like to thank our conference partner, John Warber from New York, from Learning Times. His company is based in New York, but I think he comes to us from Philadelphia. I'm not sure if John is around, perhaps not, but he's been really helpful in providing some of the Zoom rooms as well. Okay, we'd also like to recognize our University of Hawaii LTech faculty who are using their Zoom rooms and are serving as hosts for both days. I'll have them say hello if they're here. Ari?
Thanks, Curtis. Hi, everyone. So glad to see everyone here. My name is Ari Eichelberger. I'm from the Learning, Design and Technology Department here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Welcome.
And Peter Leong.
Aloha, everyone. I'm Peter Leong with the Department of Learning, Design and Technology too. So good to see everyone.
And is Dan Hoffman here? Or Singo Peck? Both are also faculty with the LTech department and will be serving as hosts. Just to mention that today, we are doing roundtable sessions. We have 3 sessions, session A, B, and C. After session A, you'll have a chance to have a break for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or whatever time you're having a meal. And then we come back and finish up sessions B and C. And at the end of session C, we all go to Gather Town in the beach and have a beach party. So today is a roundtable. Tomorrow we have concurrent sessions, and it follows a same kind of schedule. Opening keynote, welcome, and then 3 concurrent sessions A, B, and C with a break for meals after session A. Okay, we're coming up to 10 minutes after the hour, so I want to make sure that we move things along. And forgive me if I have forgotten to mention anybody else who I was supposed to acknowledge. Okay, so it really gives me great pleasure to introduce our first keynote speaker of this conference, Dr. Danilo Balan, who is a professor of instructional technology, media, and design from the University of West Georgia. Danilo is a good friend of ours through TCC Hawaii and the International Division of AECT, where he served as president. He is currently a Fulbright scholar with the United States. And I'm impressed with all of his credentials, and you can take a look at his bio. But I'd like to move things along and give Danilo ample time to speak. So I'll just end here by saying that Danilo is an impressive international scholar. So you'll see that his work and research is based mostly in Philippines, but elsewhere as well. And he has extensive experience in designing, developing, and delivering online courses. I'm sure you'll be impressed by his presentation today. Danilo, the virtual podium is yours. So you have about 45 minutes, and then we'll have time for some questions and answers. And then Danilo, I know you've agreed to meet others in Gathertown afterwards for more questions and answers. Okay, so Danilo, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Curtis. Just want to make sure, sound test, are we okay?
Yes, we are good, and we can see you okay too.
Okay, very good.
We'll make sure that you're able to share your screen. Let's see, screen, was it set up for that?
Yes.
Multiple participants, yeah, okay, here we go.
Okay, make sure the screen is available. Curtis, could you confirm?
We are seeing that.
Okay, so
we are seeing the screen.
Okay, thank you. So greetings from Atlanta, Georgia, which is a little bit hot, humid, and really warm right now. I'm hoping it will not rain before I go home tonight, but I'm really excited to be here. First, I want to express my appreciation to the conference organizers, especially Bert, Curtis, and Kitty for the invitation and the opportunity to share stories of designing learning experiences amidst the impact of pandemic, lockdown, and remote teaching. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of networking across the globe, and as Curtis mentioned, I did a lot of work in the Philippines. So one of the interesting things that has happened in the last 3 years is that all of us have learned to adapt, adjust, and manage personal and professional lives in response to the rapidly changing situation brought about by the pandemic. And this is more apparent to my colleagues in the Philippines, where I'll be telling stories about what we did the last couple of months to help their faculty embrace the new academic year. So the story I'm going to share began 6 decades ago in an island called Panay in central Philippines. I was born in the island. Part of my growth as a learner was molded by my educational experiences while growing up. Through the years, I journeyed beyond the shores of Panay Island, explored other places, engaged with diverse groups and individuals, and used valuable resources. But 30 years ago, I moved here to the United States, where I pursued my graduate work and have stayed for a while. In the last 15 years, half of those 30 years, I've gone back and, in a way, as they say, pay it forward for what I've learned growing up in the Philippines. So I've done a lot of networking. I spent my academic leave one time, and spent working with the faculty. So along the way, I met individuals, so open doors of opportunity, okay, in terms of working with faculty in higher education, as well as teachers in K-12 settings. In this story, 2 individuals championed the idea of finding new ways to support faculty and students to succeed given academic expectations. The problem with the Philippines is not only in terms of internet connectivity, which I've spoken, in a couple of TCC conferences, but in terms of how prepared are the faculty to move forward, from remote teaching to maybe going back to face-to-face teaching, or maybe online teaching. Most of the universities don't have a learning management system, or they're just acquiring learning management system to help them. So my work in the Philippines has been championed by these 2 individuals, the Vice President for Academic Affairs for the West Visayas State University and the Director of Instruction. Okay. What's interesting is that West Visayas will be my host university as I pursue my Fulbright Fellowship in January 2023. So I'm laying the groundwork of some of the things that I will be doing with this university. So one of the things that really put a question in front of us is how we need to rethink learning experiences. If the faculty even has no idea how to do things online, or maybe do blended learning, or maybe do a combination of both. So there's a lot of conversation about onboarding to help university citizenship. There's a lot of conversation about continuing professional development. And finally, this conversation about remote teaching, where 7 years ago when I was there for my academic leave, people won't even touch the idea of distance education. And now they are forced to pursue this, because if not, the students cannot access education for a lot of the universities. Let's see, hold on. Okay, so this conversation focused on designing learning experiences for hybrid, high flex, or online learning. And one of the things I heard in this initial conversation is that they're looking for the solution. Okay, what's the right solution? How can we help our faculty? So based on this, we talk about recruiting a cohort of faculty, about 20 of them, that were nominated by their academic units. Later on, I will talk about some of the challenges that came out with this decision. We decided to come up with an online program that will be delivered, for 8 weeks, for about 2 hours. We divided the cohort of 20 into 2 groups, and I spent 2 hours for each group every week for the remaining 8 weeks. So the participants were grouped in clusters. Some are more, how would I say, writing-based courses or teaching writing-based courses, and some are teaching problem-based courses or hands-on courses. So as you can see, these 20 people who is participating that they want this administration to develop are coming from 8 colleges and 5 satellite campuses of the university teaching various courses. And so then part of this experience is we talk about providing individual or small group consultation between synchronous sessions. So we talk about, so how are we going to redesign this experience? Because most of the time, especially in Asia and in the Philippines, training comes in the form of face-to-face where somebody lectures, the faculty or the speaker or is the expert, and they come in and tell everybody what they need to do. But now, given this remote situation or this online situation, what are the things that we need to emphasize? So given that the faculty, these 20 faculty are coming with different experiences or different courses to teach, we talk about content, okay? So how are we going to handle content from writing intensive courses to reading intensive courses and into hands-on courses like nursing or, biology or doing experiments or dance or swimming? How do you make that, happen in this online remote teaching kind of environment? The other piece that we talk about in terms of in redesigning learning experiences is we talk about engagement, okay? So this is not just a pure lecture one way. There's a lot of two-way kind of interaction. There's a lot of collaboration that we expect to happen in these courses that this faculty will develop, And then finally, assessment. How do you make this assessment? Most of the time, they're used to giving tests, okay, objective tests. And so now that, the whole format has changed, how are you going to test? Especially one of the faculty is teaching international dance. How do you make that happen, in an online environment? So these are some of the initial conversations as we move forward to redesigning the learning experiences. Now, the other thing that's happening with the faculty is that, we need to look at, how they are putting together their courses. So remember that I talk about 8 weeks of, sessions with the faculty, synchronous sessions with the faculty. And so one of the things that we talk about is what will be the content of this experience for the faculty. So there are 8 sessions. The first one, we talk about framing the learning experience. And as you can see here, there's a lot of concepts that are thrown to them. And it's very important that they can relate to these concepts. Most of them are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, but some of them may not be as keen on how to really conceptualize it into their courses, okay? We provide, conversations on hybrid versus HyFlex versus online formats, okay, as an initial mapping of the learning experience, okay? And so this is one of the first topics that we tackle. The second session focused on content, analyzing context, audience, and tasks. For those of you who's familiar with instructional design, this is the basics, at the beginning of putting together a course or putting together an online module, okay? So we talk about course planning elements, we talk about course outcomes, we discuss learning acquisition, aligning with Bloom's taxonomy and mapping the learning experience. And then we have different activities. Okay. And so I know that due to time, I may not be able to expand on all of this, but one of the things that I'd be happy is to talk about more of this in Gathertown, or eventually I would write, a paper for the journal and talk more about these experiences. So third is, how do you make things fit, So again, this initial conversation about Bloom's taxonomy, one of the things that I've learned is that they conceptually understand Bloom's taxonomy, but they're not sure how to really make it happen. Most of the time when we look at the syllabus and the course outcomes, they have their creating as the first objectives, and then they have their remembering as one of the last objectives or outcomes. And so I asked a lot of questions to help clarify. And so the initial part of this conversation with the faculty is looking at what are you trying to achieve? What do you want the students to learn? So for many of you, it may be basic, but for this faculty, it's really important. It's really important they're very clear in terms of the sequence of their course outcomes. Oops, sorry, I keep on jumping a week ahead. And then we again look at session 4. As you can see, we talk about path to achieving outcomes, structuring the learning experience, building learning objectives, putting it all together, and then we talk about feedback. Okay. So just giving you an overview of what was covered. Session 5 covered a lot of tools against, 21st century skills. We focus on communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and creativity. And we talk a lot about what kind of tools and what kind of projects or activities that you can do if these are your focus, given, what trying to teach to the students. 6, we had a lot of questions and answers. As the faculty, as the participants start pulling together their ideas, okay, to put together an online module, they had a lot of questions, okay? So how do you build community with technology? How do you put together a writing instruction, or how do you write instructions that is effective, okay? How do you structure online discussions? How do you, students do reflections, okay? And then there's a lot of conversation about HyFlex format. One of the interesting pieces at this point of the faculty development session is that they believe that HyFlex is the solution, okay? And so one of the interesting things that we did at the beginning is that I said you need to suspend the idea that HyFlex is the solution to all your, teaching issues, teaching remotely or teaching online. And so at this point of session 6, I showed them a video of how a HyFlex classroom would look like. And we had a big conversation because part of the problem with HyFlex is that you need to restructure a classroom space, or you need to restructure a learning space. And right now the university has no space for that. So it might be a good goal for the university to pursue, but the point is that they're not ready at this point. But as I emphasize to the faculty, what is important is for you to look at your course design, okay, and how you can put it together that you may be able to deliver it online or deliver it as hybrid, okay. What's interesting is that they are still hoping that they will go back to face-to-face teaching. And one of the interesting things that I emphasize as I have this conversation with different faculties that may not happen, or that may be limited, in terms of what you can do. And so I think you need to anticipate that eventually what will happen is that you will be doing blended, if not online. We continued questions and reminders about same topics, okay? They keep on as we move towards the end. At this point, the faculty start putting together a small module, okay? So they pick a topic from their curriculum, okay, of the course that they're teaching, and then they start putting the module, putting the technology, putting the activities. And so one of the things that we talk, so that's content, in terms of what the faculty experience in terms of rethinking or redesigning learning experiences for their curriculum. The other piece that we talk a lot is about engagement. And so given that they have limited access to a learning management system, we talk about online discussions. Okay, and how do you structure the online discussions? For the faculty who's gone through this experience, what we did is that we embedded an online discussion in the learning management system that we're using to mimic, what will happen to their students. And so we simplify the discussions. Basically, they talk about what stood out from the previous synchronous session. They ask a lot of questions, okay? And so those questions were addressed as we open the next session. And then they also express concerns. One of the interesting piece from my perspective is that this was the most helpful piece, as the faculty try to transition and try to understand what's going to happen to their courses, as they move forward, okay? When you ask, and this is maybe I'm coming from a Filipino perspective, an Asian perspective, that most of the time nobody would ask a question if you ask, do you have any questions? Okay, and I think every one of us experienced that. But having an asynchronous space for people to ask questions was really helpful. We found that a lot of the faculty or a lot of the participants are really asking questions, voicing their concerns as they start trusting that they will not be, I would say, penalized, or they will not be, nobody will get mad with them because they have these concerns. More questions came out, which is really important for the facilitator, because then they can see where the participants are coming from and for the facilitator to address them. So we started tracking what kind of questions are being asked. And so there are 8 sessions, okay? There are 8 discussions, there are online discussions. And so the questions in terms of topics, assessment. So we got questions on assessment almost every session. Bloom's taxonomy at the beginning. So we got a lot of those. But once they have a better understanding, those questions kind of disappeared on Bloom's taxonomy. Course redesign, we have initial one, but really those came in towards the middle of the 8-week session, okay? Delivery schedule, we said, we did a mock schedule of the whole semester. In the United States, we have 16 weeks. In the Philippines, they said they have about 18 to 19 weeks, to deal with. And one of the things that I talk about is that you need to factor out all the holidays, because like Philippines, they have lots of holidays that take away instructional time. So there were questions in the middle when we start doing mock schedule of questions that came out. Engaged learning or engaging groups, okay? Those came out towards the end as they start developing their modules. High flex learning, again, it started a lot of questions at the beginning, okay? Because they thought that was the answer, that's what we're going to teach them, okay? And then as we showed them or demystify high flex learning format, we got a lot of those questions at the end also, now that they have a better understanding, okay? Instructions, there's only one session because we talk about how to write instructions effectively. And so those questions came up on those. Online connectivity, technical issues was minimal, what I mean, because that's a given, from a lot of the conversations I have with them. Okay. Resources, also there's a lot of resources in terms of what kind of, learning management system we use. One of the challenges that we heard in terms of resources is that the main campus have access to the learning management system that they just acquired. The satellite campus doesn't have, but there are people from the satellite campuses that are participating in this faculty development workshop. Teaching strategies, as almost every session, there are always questions, how do you do this? How do you make this happen? Technology tools, not only we learned about Zoom and online discussion features of the learning management system, but also we look at like Flipgrid, other applications that are available that's outside of the management of the learning management system. So as you can see, there are a bunch of questions or topics or concerns that hovers around assessment, Bloom's taxonomy, course redesign, high flex learning format, and teaching strategies. And from my perspective as a facilitator, this really built rapport, with the faculty by answering them the following session, okay? By being able to explain where I'm coming from and what is possible or what is not possible. So as we move forward, just to give you an idea what happened during those 8-week sessions, we had 8 interactive lectures. We have 8 offline tasks, okay, and I'll talk more about that. We have 8 asynchronous discussions that comes after every interactive lectures. And then we have consultation opportunities, okay. Since the participants are working on offline tasks, they were given opportunities to do one-on-one. And part of this is, from my perspective, has a cultural component. People are more willing to talk on a one-on-one and be more vulnerable about what they know and they don't know, compared to talking in front of a group, okay, even though it is online or virtual. And so there was a lot of positive feedback in those consultations. One of the challenges of those consultations is the 12-hour difference between the United States and the Philippines. So either I meet them early in the morning at their time and late at night at my time, which is, runs almost up to midnight. So that's part of our process. In terms of outcomes, I talk about offline tasks. What did we ask the participants to do? So given that part of this format is founded on instructional design principles, so we did learner analysis, and what's interesting is that we realized that the faculty only gets a roster at the beginning of the first week of class. Okay, and at this university, the first week of class is not really a teaching week. Okay, it's a get to know week. It's an orientation week, and so that's where they do their what we call needs assessment of their students, or get to know their students, their learner analyses. So one of the things that our conversation revolve around is, so what kind of adjustments do you make, once you know who your students are, okay? And so we have this template where they talk about, describe the students, their internet connectivity, their experiences. So that many of the faculty found that helpful because they never did learner analyses. They just assume, these are students assigned to me, I'll teach them, okay? But not really trying to think about, oh, these are my students, okay, these are some of the issues or some of the characteristics that they have. Now, how do I make adjustments in my teaching, in my activities, to make it more meaningful to them, okay? We did an offline task on course mapping. So we look at, their outcomes, okay, and their objectives, and we try to map the course, how related. And this is where a lot of the Bloom's taxonomy alignment came into play and helped the faculty understand that, they build on top of each other. There's a sequence that you don't really start with creating and then do remembering at the end, but, you do a sequence, okay? That not your course can only stop at understanding and not do anything anymore. Because if you're asking your students you create something, then you're pushing, the Bloom's taxonomy to a higher level. STAR inventory is really strategies, tools, activities, and resources. So they have to come up with an inventory of what's available to them. Okay, and so definitely there's a difference between what the people in the main campus have, okay, or accessible to them, compared to those in the satellite campuses. Another offline task that we ask our faculty to do is to mock up their schedule. So how is your 18-week schedule will look like, in the fall? What kind of holidays will come into play that will impact your instructional time? So for some of them, it was a challenge, because they're trying to cram everything, and I said, well, you have to look at how are you pacing your course, given now that you can see, the 18 weeks and, where the outcomes are being met. Maybe you have too much activities. And so that's something that maybe you need to reconsider. And so once we have those four, okay, we come up with a prototype development plan, okay? So they pick a topic, okay, from their curriculum. They look at the course outcomes and they develop a small, they plan for a prototype, okay, of an online learning module. And so that was a shift from the initial plan that we have, because if we pursue a whole course, I think they'll be overwhelmed, okay? And they'll just, give up, it's overwhelming to build a whole course. So we start with something small that is manageable, okay? And hoping that they can clone that experience and then, slowly build a whole course based on that. And then the final activity that we have is they have to create instructions for their activity. So if the plan requires there's a discussion, there's a project, then they have to write instructions, okay? And then I show them different examples of instructions that I did in my own work. And then we have a discussion of why this is better or why, it has more details, because sometimes they just say, oh, the students will figure it out, okay? But I said, in an online environment, the students are not there in front of you to ask questions, or they're not even available to come to the university, so it's really important to write your instructions clearly and in detail, so because students will be accessing them online. In the middle there, you see that, there's a technology activity. So at the beginning, we did Padlet, we did another like Meter, different kinds of application just for not only for fun, but also to get them exposure. Okay. The other thing that I want to point out is that there is an initial and a revision. So we started with initial, then we have online consultations to talk about their initial submissions. And then from there, they make a revision, towards the end of the 8-week session. Okay. So that gives you an idea of how the experience look like for this faculty. Okay. That's the first part of this session. The second part, I'll talk more about my reflections. So COVID-19, because really it's about everybody searching for something normal, okay? After 2 or 3 years of COVID-19, everybody wants to just go back, but we know that we cannot go back. So the COVID-19 virus and its variants have changed teaching and learning practices among higher education institutions worldwide. After 3 years of operating in the new normal, universities and colleges are rethinking their onboarding and continuing professional development activities to support faculty work, student development, and staff support services. Philippine-based HEIs, based on my experience, continue to deal with lockdown, okay, limited face-to-face delivery for specific student populations. Right now, like the nursing, the fourth-year nursing students are able to come on campus because they have to do their labs, okay, or they have to do their work at the hospital, or their internship, okay. And then I'll talk about more about challenges in accessing adequate and stable electronic and digital infrastructures. So as I said, the first part is about the experience, about what we did, okay, and now what we've learned from that. So the first one are managing challenges, okay. So recruitment, remember at the beginning of this, I talk about every academic unit nominated 2 people. And based on my relationships with the different participants, I get to learn that there's a pro and con in doing that strategy, okay? Some people felt pressured because the dean or the department chair asked them, and they're not really ready. But since, they were asked by their supervisors, some of them were very thankful that they were selected. they were nominated because they learned some more. So again, it's a matter of looking at which is the best way to do this strategy. The interesting part is when we finish this session, this 8-week session, we talk about people applying for the spot, for the next cohort. Okay. Timeline, 8 weeks. 8 weeks is a good timeline based on our experience. However, you don't do it in the middle of the semester. Either you start it immediately at the beginning of the first semester to help them prepare, because one of the things that we learned, we're competing with other end of the semester activities, and that really pulled people, especially those with administrative, roles at the university. So it became a challenge for them. Technology fluency was a plus and a minus. Part of that is that some people have no experience with learning management systems, especially from the satellite campuses. And then for those who are in the main campus, they have some training, but it's not as intensive yet. So maybe the second year, it will be much better, or the second cohort will be much better, okay, in terms of what people's capacity and capability. Design knowledge. Almost all of them does not have an instructional design background. Okay, the curriculum, they do curriculum and instruction degrees or master degrees, and it's really minimal in touching on instructional design. And so that's a big conversation with administration. What else can we do to support developing that cognitive perspective on instructional design or instructional design and development? They know production, okay? They can produce materials, but in terms of the conceptual and the application of instructional design elements and principles, that's a little bit more kind of missing. And so that's something that is really important as we move forward to help the faculty. Engaged learning is another challenge, expectation for hands-on engagement. As I mentioned, there were faculty participating in this cohort that are teaching, they're bringing in dance, they're teaching international dance, or they're teaching swimming, okay? And so it becomes a challenge for them, or they're teaching like, let's see, poultry with chickens, like they're veterinary or they're in the College of Agriculture. And so that's really a challenge for them to think about hands-on, because if you cannot see your students, if you cannot meet them face to face, what else can we do? And then the big challenge when we started is this perception that HyFlex, learning format is the solution, that, it will solve our problem. But the problem is that part of the HyFlex challenge is infrastructure. And, the university is not ready for that. Maybe next year, now that they know what they need to do, then they can develop the infrastructure. But again, the challenge with HyFlex is that you need more than one classroom. What I mean? There are multiple courses at the university. And so, you don't, one classroom will not solve your problem. Okay. And then on top of that is training of faculty. The other things that, we talk about as part of this reflection is that at the end, we had an evaluation of the whole program. But initially we asked the participants, how prepared are you for this workshop? And so as you can see, the numbers, 31% says they were ambivalent, okay, under level of preparedness. 18% said, prepared in some areas, and then it should say unprepared in some areas, and then 50% said prepared in some areas. Apologies for that mistake, okay? Then we talk about, so what are the obstacles as we look back? So there are internal and external obstacles to faculty success in this type of initiatives of developing or onboarding or continuing professional development. Internally, time management skills. Many faculty in the Philippines, especially at this university, teaches about 5 or 6 or maybe 5 or 6 courses as a full load. on top of sometimes they do overload. So they may be teaching 8 courses. And so time management is an issue to start preparing for building a new course. And that comes with organization skills and then technology literacy, especially now that if you're trying to move online or hybrid. And then definitely instructional design knowledge, as part of internal obstacles. External increasing work-related activities. As I mentioned earlier, faculty have administrative roles. And so one of the big things I've learned in the Philippines is that there's accreditation left and right. Okay, a unit may go through maybe 1 accreditation a year, if not 2. Okay, because that is valued, by the culture. Okay. Again, the overlapping time commitment, dealing with connectivity issues. Most of them during the workshop are either connecting through phones instead of desktop computers that are hardwired. So the connectivity becomes a challenge. Managing different types of students coming from the city or urban areas compared to those coming from the rural areas or neighboring islands. Okay, and so that in a way expand the whole problem of connectivity, especially if the students are connecting in Mindanao, which is the island in the south, the big island in the south, compared to where Panay Island, which is in the middle of the country. The other piece is access to good technology devices. So they don't have the latest and the greatest tools before them, and so that becomes problematic. And then talking about teaching strategies, one of the things that we talk about is that, well, you don't know what you don't know. So the more exposure they get, maybe they get better in terms of rethinking or being creative and how to create online type of activities, but without those exposure, they're limited to what they know how to teach face-to-face and then to do those translation. So one of the things that we talk about with administration is providing more of this type of activities to expose faculty of what's possible. In terms of engaging learning strategies, we talk about 2 things. One is the online discussions, that was really helpful, and the consultations. So overall, if these are data from the evaluation, that out of the 16 who completed the evaluation, at least 5 had took advantage of 3 consultations. We provided 1, 2, or 3 the most. In terms of online discussions, a lot of the at least 6 took advantage of, completed 7 to 8 online discussions, or about 5 or 6 discussions. So that, given all the other obstacles in terms of time, but I mean, that's a good indicator of interest and motivation among the faculty. So as I look at this, it's really important to value professional development. Okay, and that's something that these 2 individuals I started with is really wants to champion. Okay, they want to see emergence of new practices and insights from exposure to different activities that most of the faculty at this university is not exposed or are not available to them. So more collaborations, more issues of cross-cultural, given that there's a lot of cross-pollination needed between the on-campus faculty, because there are 8 colleges on campus and the 5 satellite campuses. Okay. So it's just that the key is that you just have to make it happen. Okay, but making it happen also requires funding and support from upper administration. Okay. So as I look back at this experience, just looking at the diamond, okay? Diamond results from exposure to constant pressure and heat, okay? And the pandemic, to some extent, have provided that, okay? That really push this university to rethink how they're helping their faculty, okay? And in return, understood that there are other issues that they need to take care. As I said, 7 years ago, when I did my academic leave, I was pushing for online learning or hybrid, blended learning, and they were not open to the idea. But now, what I mean, they're more open to the idea of doing this for their faculty, because eventually it will impact the students. So really the bottom line is, what can we do for our students? But as a faculty, the participants said to me, we would like to do a lot of things for our students, but we need to be helped first, so that's really important, the recognition for continuous improvement, which is really much desired. Okay. Oh, sorry. So to wrap this up, nothing is perfect. What I mean, this was our first cohort. There'll always be cracks to deal with, since we are dealing with people, faculty, and students. There are always issues, personal and professional, that interferes or distracts us from getting better as faculty members, as teachers, and as learners. Also, there is a learning curve. Okay. Individuals need to find their comfort levels, but it means that they need to feel supported in making the change. Okay, I think that's really important, that the administration is not only paying lip service, but was really sincere, to really help the faculty and to make their lives a lot better, given the impact of the pandemic. Overall, the participants found the program helpful. At the end, out of the 2018 completed the program. 16 completed the program. No, 18 completed the program, 16 completed the evaluation of the program, okay? 2 of the people who did not complete the program had health issues or family issues that really prevented them towards the beginning of the program. What's interesting is that, as I said, it's not perfect, but the administration, the 2 people championed, was really, I won't say ecstatic, but really positive of what they see on the impact to their faculty. They have asked me to do a second cohort that will start next month. So the next, so it's another 8 weeks from September to October to run for another group. One of the things that I'd like to see as somebody who's involved with this activity is to follow up the first cohort. What happened? What did they take from that 8-week experience that they started integrating or implementing? So that's something I'm interested in, although I'm also excited to do a second cohort, okay? And then in January, when I assume my Fulbright fellowship at this university, we will run a third cohort. That's our plan, face-to-face, okay? So we have, the 2 cohorts of online, and then we will have a face-to-face and see if there's a big difference, if that is the case. So that's the plan, and then open a graduate level course that parallels the face-to-face experience. So the experience of rethinking, redesigning, and recreating these learning experiences for this group of people was an eye-opener. It is something that I could say, honestly, that there's a lot for an instructional designer, because that's how I self-identify, that there's a lot of cross-cultural pieces that somebody from the United States need to consider in working in another country like the Philippines, okay? Even though I'm Filipino, I was born Filipino, I grew up in the Philippines, there's still a lot of things that I have to consider and consult with, because I need to understand it has to be meaningful to this group of people. So given that, thanks again for the opportunity to speak before you and to share my story about this experience.
Thank you so much, Danilo. I appreciate your sharing your experiences in professional faculty development. I think all of us, many of us, have faced a similar kind of situation. So hearing it from you kind of reinforces a lot of thinking that we have gone through in the past 2.5 years. I'm gonna stop here and make sure that we give you a round warm-up applause. And you can use your reaction button to do that. And to let you know that, Danilo, we have maybe 5 minutes for questions and answers here in Zoom. And then we're going to cut it off and have all of you go to GatherTown if you want to, or to go and participate in the roundtable discussions in 20 minutes. Okay, so Danilo, stick around. Those of you who have questions or comments, you can text, or you can use the reaction tool and raise your hand, and we'll call on you. So I see applauses in the chat area. I'm not sure if you can see that, Danilo.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I'm able to open
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Just
Hey,
looking for
Danilo.
any comments. Okay, go
Hi,
ahead, Peter.
Danilo.
Hi.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And apologies if you have covered it, but in one of the slides you mentioned the preferred mode was high flex, right? Could you talk a little about how they actually did the high flex with your cohort?
Okay.
So there are 3 different modes, right? They could have, and what kind of tools they use for the high flex combination? Thank you.
Okay. Good question, Peter. So they had this idea when they were presented with this program that, that we will focus on high flex because that's the solution. So that's how the administration, in a way, marketed the program. So I have to correct that. And so what I did is that at the beginning, when they were saying, okay, teach us about high flex, I said, let's suspend this because we need to look at your curriculum first. We need to look at your syllabus and outcomes and see how is that put together. So I initially approached it like an instructional designer instead of going for the technology or the delivery. I said, let's suspend that. Then on the 6th session, okay, what I did is there was this great video from Harvard of how they're doing high flex. And so I showed that video as a point for discussion. Okay, if this is how high flex would look like, because as I was saying to them, in high flex, you're really teaching 3 population at the same time, in the classroom, the one online, and the one who's not there in the classroom or online, but will join the class later, so they're off. And so how do you manage that? So they were able to see some of the demands to the faculty in terms of their teaching. And so what's interesting is that some of them were excited about it because they said, oh, I can do that, but then the next question that came up in that discussion during the 6th session is that, do you have the facility? Do you have a classroom with several monitors? Okay, do you have a classroom where you can do group work with laptops and all of that? So that slowly they're starting to realize that it's possible, but you need to make the investment. And so in a way that push the administration to really, right now, I think they're creating one classroom as a test classroom. And then once they feel comfortable with that setup, and when they have all the resources, then they will start training faculty. And then they'll make some decisions, what courses can go high flex, use the high flex format, but what other courses can do in terms of online or face-to-face or blended. Okay. So I hope that answered the question, Peter.
Yes, thank you, Danilo.
Okay, we have one more time. I want more time for one more question. If you have a quick question, we can handle it here. Okay, if not, we really are out of time here. But again, please go to GatherTown in the Keynote room. You get a chance to go avatar to avatar and talk to Danilo about anything that you want to based on his presentation or anything else for that matter. So Danilo, again, thank you very much for your time and appreciate your sharing of your experiences that will be continuing over the next year. And so we look forward to more presentations and a research paper or two from that.
Thanks.
So everyone, thank you. Thank you, Danilo. Everyone, thank you for coming. We'll see you in 15 minutes in the roundtable sessions, okay? So take care. Bye-bye.